back at, bust in the air, give me space, beats with plenty bass, drink my Hennessy straight, till I earl out, third world cloud, I'll take niggas' hearts, and turn killers into Girl Scouts, works of art, Picasso's from the hydro roller, slash hustler, CEO, slash retired soldier. This place is mine.
Guys, what is up? Welcome to another episode of Maximilian Must Know. I have an original formulation of a fairly popular designer scent for you guys. This one is called the Michael Kors for Men. Now, I totally lucked out on grabbing this one. Before we break it down, let's talk about the house that is Michael Kors. This is a very American house. It was started in 1959 by a gentleman born Carl Anderson Jr. Later, he changed his name to Michael Kors, and he changed his name, or had his name changed at 5 years old when his mother remarried. Now, Kors grew up. He went to FIT, and he started making clothes when he was 19 years old. In 1981, at 22 years old, he launched Michael Kors for Women, and he was able to actually get that in some New York City department stores. Having that company led him to a very lofty position at a French fashion house called Celine. But Kors eventually left Celine in 2003 to re-establish Michael Kors. And Michael Kors menswear launched in 2002. Since then, he's really made waves. He has a really high-end line, and then he has a lower end line that you can find at a lot of discount spots. And I have to say, the lower end line is pretty nice. You guys know I'm pretty tough on clothing, and I think it's certainly a lot nicer than Kenneth Cole, who you guys know I think is the most overrated designer in the history of fashion. As far as Kors goes, I have 4 or 5 items of clothing from them. I have a couple of coats, a pea coat, and I have a couple of blazers. It was a suede one too that I get a ton of a velvet one that I get a ton of compliments on. It's dark black and it has really cool white stitching. It's really nice, and it's from the lower end of Michael Kors line. I think I got it at Daffy's, which is a discounter. At least it used to be a discounter. Also, you might have seen Michael Kors as a judge on the television show Project Runway. Now, as far as fragrances go, Michael Kors sold the name to Estee Lauder, and together they released their first scent, Michael for Women, in 2001, and Michael for Men later the same year. Very recently, or last year, this one was reformulated and repackaged, and I had a sample of the original, and I got a sample of the newer one from Decant Shop, and I enjoyed the older juice, not so much the later stuff. So anyway, I was in TJ Maxx a while back, and amongst all the shit out there, I found a 75 ml bottle of the OG juice for $30, and I copped it. Now, you can still sometimes find the vintage juice between $80 and $100 online, and that's the juice we'll be reviewing today. But I just want to make the point to you guys, like, you know, a lot of people sort of wonder how I have some hard to get stuff or discontinued stuff. Like, TJ Maxx and those discounters are great places to look. And my tips for you guys, and I'm giving you my tips, so you'll probably be taking fragrances away from me, is first of all, check back as often as you can because they're constantly putting new stuff out. And don't hesitate to check in the women's section because I always see stuff misplaced. And don't hesitate to actually go through all the bottles. I cannot tell you everything great that I've ever found there. Laura Biagiotti, Romo Uomo, the Roberto Cavalli Oud. It's not just sitting out there with millions of them. It's usually behind a lot of other stuff. And there's usually one box, you know, it's obscure. And so you got to look through everything. And I'm telling you, there are jewels out there. I found many, they exist, you know, and sometimes you'll just find stuff you've never heard of, and it's fun to take a risk on those as well. So I really enjoy doing that. That's sort of my TJ Maxx or Marshalls or whatever discounter advice for you guys as well. Now, this scent, Michael Kors, came out in 2001. The perfumer on this one was Harry Fremont. Guys, he's done so many fragrances. He did the original CK1. He's done many from the Xenia Essenza line, which I think is an excellent designer high-end line, and he did Polo Sport, which is always going to be one of my favorite fragrances. And the notes on this one that he did for Michael Kors are coriander, fir resin, tarragon, star anise, caraway, bergamot, cardamom, and cinnamon. In the middle, you're going to get tobacco, incense, and suede, and then the base, you're going to get sandalwood, patchouli, plum, and dried fruits. Now, as far as your presentation goes, the box is different in most boxes. This slides out. You pull the tab and you actually insert it there, and then when you need to close it up, you just slide it back in, and so that's the box. And spray, you have your batch code on the bottom. The bottle resembles the Gucci Pour Homme 1 bottle. Now, this could be a defect, and why this was at TJ Maxx, but you see this white spotting on the bottle. I don't think it's meant to be marble. I don't know, maybe there was just some discoloration, and this one couldn't be sold regularly. The cap is actually fairly heavy, and the atomizer works well, so no complaints on the bottle, which to me clearly resembles the Gucci Pour Homme 1 bottle, but it is what it is. Okay, so let's break this one down. This, for me, is a tale of two fragrances. This one comes out of the bottle with a lot of swagger and machismo. It's this melange of tobacco and spices and dried fruits. It's gorgeous, and certainly I would say niche quality at the top. The fruit is lively, the spices are natural, and then about 15 to 20 minutes in, this one starts to get a little soapy. And there's a soapy stage in the middle where the suede pops in a bit. A little bit of resin. And then, unfortunately, this turns into a smell that I detest. And something that a lot of 80s fragrances have in their dry down. And to me, that's the smell of cigarette smoke on clothing a couple days later. I hate that smell. And for me, this one is chock full of that in the dry down. So you see, I like a fairly large portion of this fragrance, but then I get to a point where I cannot stand this fragrance and want it off my skin. And that's sort of the issue with this one. Performance is very good on this one. Good structure. It really does go through those 3 stages, and it projects and it lasts for a good 8 to 10 hours. I'd be surprised if women wanted to wear this one, but you never know. And I would call this a business casual fragrance or just a casual fragrance. My issue was that I never want to smell like cigarette smoke, so it was hard for me to pull this one off anywhere. Now, if you're unable to find this one or looking for something like it but different, or even an upgraded version of this one, on the high end, there's a few things that makes me think of this. Jubilation 25. It's got the dried fruit and the resins on the woods, tobacco vanille, 1270 by Frappin, the great Les Jeux Sont Faits by Jovoy, which is a dried fruit fragrance with booze and tobacco and leather. That's I would say a much better version of this fragrance. I don't know there's something cheaper that I can compare this to though, but it has been compared online to Southern Blend by Tim McGraw. I've never smelled that one. Also, what I think is a much better sort of take on the notes in this fragrance is London by Burberry, which has some of the notes in this fragrance. And I think that one does it a lot more modern and a lot better. If someone were trying to talk you into purchasing this one, I think they would tell you that some people are going to love this. I know some reviewers that do. It's vintage juice. Vintage juice is always great. It certainly is different for a designer frag, and it's better than the reformulation, which doesn't have a hell of a lot of solar character. On the flip side, I think someone would say that this one is hard to find. It's got a cigarette smoke vibe to it, and you should just spend that extra money, especially because this vintage version will be pricey, and just get yourself a better fragrance. For me, this is a 6 out of 10, and it was really hard to come to that conclusion on the pro side, but this one has a gorgeous opening. I appreciate the packaging, and this was a daring composition, and it performs. Now on the flip side, it's hard to find it's hard to wear this knowing there's a stage that I cannot stand, and it's expensive. And at that point, why wouldn't you just wear Jubilation 25 or 1270 or Les Jeux Sans Fate or London by Burberry, which is gorgeous all the way through? This is one of these scents that you guys are going to have to be the judge and jury. A lot of guys like this one, and more I would say like it than do not. It's just not for me. Now I will come back to it and keep seeing if something changes, and I'm definitely happy to have this in my collection, as I know it's not going to be made anymore. I always love to add those fragrances to the collection in case I do plan on selling someday. So guys, that is it. That has been my review of Michael Kors for Men. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I'll see you next week with more videos. My name is Maximilian, and I must know.
How we bury beef with a rose. To his weight, we send a reef that explodes. Beneath our sea with the reaper. They sleep eyes closed. That's how real Brad Jordan keep it. To him I owe 5 4 foes ready.